Warning, Pinky in the Game says vulgar language, extreme laughter, uncalled for jokes, and you may have your feelings hurt. This is strictly made for gamers by gamers. If you feel warm, bubbly, or intense urge to dance, you know you're watching Pinky in the Game.
Hey guys, welcome back to Pinky in the Games. I'm your host, Pink, and with me is Irish.
What's up, everybody?
Tonight we have Havoc from the NerdRealm, and 404 is producing the show. So,
hey guys.
Our guest in this show needs absolutely no introduction, but here's one anyway. He's the creator of Xbox Live and developer of the Xbox operating systems, partner director of development ISS, console development management, and created XNA game developed language. Please welcome Boyd Multerer.
Hey there, how you doing?
Great. Thank you for responding so promptly to my request for the interview today. It's truly an honor.
Hey, no problem. It sounded fun.
It is fun.
Yeah.
It's always a great time on the show.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. I love it. So, graduating with a Bachelor of Science degree in mechanical engineering, what inspired you to go into the realm of programming?
That's a good question. So, I was in mechanical engineering school in the University of Wisconsin, and my whole life up till that point, I really thought I was going to be designing machines. I'd grown up around construction equipment, cement mixers and ground compactors and stuff like that. In fact, I'd even worked out in the factory a bunch of summers. And I'm sitting there in one of these classes, and I think there were two different classes that pulled me over. The first one was, I think it was like mechanics and materials, and we're learning about foundries and castings, and it's like, what? You design the part and you have to wait 6 months to get it back from the foundry to see if it works?
Wow.
And I'm just not patient enough for that. Right. At the same, I know, totally. And then I'm in this other class. Sorry, it's kind of nerdy. I was in this vibratory mechanical systems class, and the professor is going on about things that bounce up and down and vibrate and springs and dampers. And I'm like, oh, this is, rather than build it, I'll bet I could simulate this in software. And I just started writing it, and it took me 2, maybe 3 years, and it became my big senior project and big multiple degree of freedom vibratory mechanical simulator. And I ended up selling it to a bunch of colleges.
Wow.
And, that was such a total blast, because you get an idea in your head and you start writing code, and you can tell if it works immediately, right? So you get this instant satisfaction, and then when you finally wrap your head around a new concept and you see it working, it's just so much fun. And I actually dug up that code again about a month ago, and it took me a while because I had to resurrect some old Macintoshes. When I say old, I mean I bought them in the late 80s.
The pure white or the greenbacks?
It was a Mac 2 CI.
Ooh, that is back there.
Yeah, so I resurrected my old Mac 2 CI, and it had it'd been Frankentoshed with the 68040 chip in it, and I actually got the thing running, and I got my old code back, and I looked at it, and I remember being so proud of this code, and I'm looking at it now going, oh, this sucks. Wow. But it still works, and it was fun to see it, and so that was a blast. And then I got out of college, and I realized that I've got this other problem where I really don't like people telling me what to do.
Yeah.
So, again, a long time ago, I kind of decided not to go work for anybody, and I ran my own software company for about 7 years, doing desktop publishing software. And like a lot of work with PageMaker. I don't know if you know what that is.
Uh-huh.
So Adobe PageMaker and Quark Express and those programs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, let's see, then it's now the late 90s, and I had this side job I did with Microsoft working on web servers. And I thought to myself, by the end of that job, I'm like, okay, this web thing is going to kill desktop publishing. So I kind of jumped ship, sold off my stuff to Adobe, took a job at Microsoft building web servers, and that's where I met this guy named Jay Allard. And Jay was cool and fun, and that ended up being a fun project. And then about a couple years later, he started this Xbox thing, and that's what pulled me over there.
Huh.
Yeah,
so
I know.
So you just sold everything to Adobe, and then that's how you got started with Microsoft. Yeah,
I mean, there was a lot of confusion. Adobe had just bought Aldus and kind of weird times, and so they bought the little software products I had, and they ended up going into PageMaker 5. And I went to go work on web servers because I figured that's where the action was going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that was probably a really smart move too, because everything right around then made that big jump.
That's right.
Yeah. So when you started working with Microsoft, were you playing video games at all, or?
I love games, right? And it's kind of funny. I played a lot of games. I played a lot more games back then than I did after I started on Xbox, because when it's your job, you spend a lot of time with it all day long, and you don't necessarily want to spend as much time in the evening. Yeah. So yes, I was playing a lot of games. And I'll tell you what, the one that stands out, you're going to even if you don't ask, the game that stands out in my head from those years the most is Pathways into Darkness.
Oh my God.
You.
Yes. Yes. That snatched me away from my days and days of Golden Axe.
Yeah. So, and I was talking to the Bungie guys, and I mentioned that to them, and they just started apologizing. Because there's this section in the middle of the game where they thought it'd be really fun if there just wasn't any ammo laying on the ground. And you had to go back like 4 levels in the pyramid to get ammo and then go back down. And they're like, yeah, nobody ever got past that. And I'm like, actually, I did. I get really stubborn in games, and I went back up, those 4 levels, I don't know how many times, in order to get enough ammo to make it through and finally make it to the end of the game. So,
oh yeah, 9 hours of your gameplay is walking back.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, what would you recall the most memorable part about creating the next generation of the Xbox?
So, you mean Xbox One?
Yes.
For me, the most memorable part. Well, I know it's a weird question because I've done this a couple times now. I helped start 360, and then I helped Xbox One, and they were both the next generation.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Like
huge jump.
The newest one that's like looking like a Windows operating system.
Well, here's the deal, right? Like the challenge with the design of the Xbox One, and this is the thing I'm the most proud of, is when you're trying to design an operating system for something, you have to think a lot about how is it going to be used and who's going to be using it. And a modern game console has this tension in it, where the people who use it, everyone expects apps, everyone expects it to change, and we set this really high bar in 360, where if you look at the original UI in the 360, it looks absolutely nothing like the UI from the middle, or again, the UI from the end of the life of 360. And it's still going, but my point is that the UI that's on the box has almost no resemblance to the UI that was there in the beginning.
Exactly, because you are referring to the Blades, I remember.
Yeah, Blades.
Yeah, the classic Blades, the Blades theme, and
yeah.
I always thought that was really kind of generic. And when they announced that they were going to push something new by pretty much bringing the UI that we have today, it was a huge leap. It looks phenomenal. It looks very functional. I love the new 360 menus that we have now. And even seeing what you guys have done with the Xbox One now, I love how it's laid out. I love I can just push the Xbox button and have all my apps right there. I can just go to it. It's really functional, and I really love that about the new UIs.
Yeah, but that was really hard. The 360 when it was originally put together, we didn't really plan to update the UI. So when we did that work, it was hard to do. Right. So now, if you're thinking about building a new console, you're in this world where where gamers and even app developers, they expect change, and they expect it to be living and updating and new things coming. But the game developers want the opposite, right? They're putting a huge amount of money and a huge amount of time into building this huge environment, a big game, and it's a lot of risk when they do that. And the last thing in the world that they want is for that platform to change underneath them and break their game. Right. So every time you think, hey, yeah, we're going to change the console and make it better for everybody, it's actually not good for the old games because you're creating risk for them. Right. They want the operating system to not change at all.
Right.
Like, you can't even use like 10 extra bytes of memory because it's been allocated to a texture, to a sound. Yeah. So you've got this tension. How do you design an operating system that can serve the needs of both sides, both customers? And coming up with a solution to that is the thing I think I'm most proud of.
And what is your amazing geeky solution that I bet is awesome?
Yeah. So what we did, and the words aren't quite right. I could say we put VMs down at the bottom of the operating system, but it's not right. It's a console, so it's pretty special purpose. It's more like stripped down partitions or stripped down VMs. So you've got a general purpose operating system sitting in a small one, and then you've got a big one which is allocated to the game. The big one, it looks a whole lot like the 360. It's got that kind of environment. The game developer links to the operating system they want. They've got strong assurances that the memory is going to look the same, that the APIs stay the same, and that the game will continue to run the way it always did. While on the other side, the Xbox team can make as many changes there as they want, and it's a much more flexible environment that still provides a level of consistency to the game side. And coming up with that solution was hard. And then finding the right people who could build it was hard. And
I believe it.
Tied to that moment, there's this guy named David Cutler. And if you don't know who Cutler is, it's worth looking him up. He's one of those people who's got a Wikipedia page, and there's basically a book written about him. It's called Showstopper. And he's the guy who was in charge of the Windows NT operating system.
I did read that page, actually, now that I think about it. As soon as you went to that.
Yeah, so Cutler is, he's a legend in the industry, and he is the most senior engineer at Microsoft.
Wow.
By far. And he's also got this incredible reputation for being really scary. Read the book Showstopper to know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'll let you read it, Brooke, but I get where he's going with that.
Yeah. And so it's like, how the heck are we going to build this operating system? Because it's really, really hard. It's really hard stuff to do. And the only person I could think of that could probably pull off the hypervisor was Cutler. So I scheduled a meeting with him, and we met in kind of neutral territory, not in his building, not in my building. So I didn't want to scare the people on my team, and I didn't want his team freaking out. We talked about it, and he was pretty agreeable to it. And the next thing you know, a couple months later, he comes on over, and I got to sit next to him for 3 years, and just amazing. It was just an amazing team.
I bet it was, but honestly, I have to ask the question now. Did you guys happen to meet at GameStop on neutral territory?
No.
I just had to ask.
Yeah, no, neutral territory. I forget. It was probably Studio X or something like that. There's so many things.
As long as it's an accident.
Yeah, let you know what kind of legend the guy is. Yeah, when he joined the Xbox team, he had his 70th birthday shortly after joining.
Oh, wow.
Jesus.
Yeah, that was 3 or 4 years ago, and he's still there typing away, working on the OS.
Wow.
Yeah, so, he's been doing this a while. He was the guy behind the Windows NT operating system, but he also wrote the VAX VMS operating system. So, going back.
Yeah. Jesus.
It was an amazing team to work with.
I believe it.
That's a lot of history. That's a lot of history in that one man right there.
Yep.
Yeah. That's extreme. So from your tweet in December of 2014, you made the announcement that you left Xbox Live. Currently, you are working on some secret coding. I'm hopefully guessing that it was in your Batcave. Is this just for fun, or do you plan on hinting for the supporters and fans for anything in the upcoming future?
Yeah. So in December, I didn't just leave Xbox. I left Microsoft.
Boom! Everybody done.
Yeah. So I'm actually independent right now, and I guess I've got a lot of ideas that I can't turn off, and I've been thinking about lots of things over the years. And I'm using this as my chance to explore and incubate a bunch of things I've wanted to build for a long time. And they're not to the point where I'm ready to say what they are, but is it fun, or is it going to be for work or whatever? I don't know. Right now it's fun, and I'm really hoping one of them gets big enough to become something huge.
Like bigger than Xbox One?
Probably different.
Ooh.
I mean, yeah. So some of them might. Say again?
So different is always good.
Different is good.
Always.
Yeah. So, who knows? Bigger than Xbox One. Xbox One is big and it's huge, and I hope it keeps getting bigger. So, maybe it's something to chase.
And it will.
Yeah. No, my goal, I guess my first goal right now is to do something impactful and something that's fun. All right, I gotta be creative, and I gotta be having fun, and I gotta write code. So that's what I'm focused on right now.
Well, after all that extreme, intense work, I read that you were working, I think it was like 8 days a week, you said, and holidays. So you were like before the Xbox launch. So you were really busy.
Everybody was pretty. Gotta cast the right light. From the beginning of June until the day it shipped at the end of November, I was there 7 days a week, and I think I missed a total of like 4 or 5 days for personal reasons in that whole time. But it wasn't just me, it was the entire team.
Yeah.
Right, there were hundreds of people who were there 7 days a week trying to get this thing done. And it was certainly the hardest project I've ever worked on, the hardest ending to a project I've ever worked on. And just one of the most euphoric feelings ever when it was done and it worked. And you could see everything. You could see many of the things we were trying to do really working, really coming to life. And it was a crazy, emotional, up and down, draining, wonderful experience.
Yeah, like one of those fun roller coasters where you feel like you're going to die, but you're not.
Right, and then you finally get off the roller coaster and you're done, and you fall down and you puke and you go, "Wow, that was great!"
Yeah, Dramamine, let's do it again.
Right, exactly.
I know that feeling.
So how big was the internal conflict of working, with Xbox and all that stuff and doing your own stuff? How big was that internal conflict? Was there a major rub off into the coding that you were doing with Xbox to what you're doing now, and just the back and forth?
No, not much of a conflict. You have to be able to compartmentalize things. And during the time, especially during the end of Xbox, I just didn't work on my own projects. I had no energy left. Yeah. Right, and this is part of why I need to do what I'm doing right now is so that I can explore things that I had put aside for a long time. When you're working 7 days a week and it's super stressful and everyone else is stressed, you've got nothing left.
Right.
Right, so all that stuff just got put aside.
I definitely understand that. I currently run my own security company, and I'm trying to maintain my professionalism on Call of Duty, and 90% of the time you will catch me doing something else right now. Definitely understand. You can ask Brooke. I'm always on Destiny now. I play Call of Duty maybe once a week.
Yeah.
I literally just skate by doing the bare minimum to keep my status going.
So while doing everything from like coding, Xbox, Microsoft, did your family support it, and how did you juggle that?
They were great. The family was great. The kids miss me a bit because I went to work a lot during that 6 months. My wife was super supportive. She was all there, and I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky that she was there to push on it. And now they're just as supportive, right? They're like, okay, they're glad to have me around. And, I'm around a lot right now. And to the point where it was kind of funny. I think last week I had a couple of lunch meetings in a row. So, I head out and I'm coming back about, after they get back from school. And so they knew I was off a couple meetings, and the kids go, Dad, why are you in so many meetings? And it's like, oh, girls, you've totally forgotten. You've totally forgotten.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I think I saw a video on YouTube of she plays violin.
Well, she did for a little while. That's my oldest.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not going to say she ever got very good at it. She's more into the sports. She's much more into Taekwondo. And that's where she's putting her energies. So she's a child black belt, working on like level 14 black belt right now. So
hell yeah, that was the same switch I made when I was about that age. Because imagine, even that little, I was still big. Like now I'm 6'4", 250 pounds. Imagine my big self and a violin. I was in orchestra, did all of it. My big self violin didn't work out so well, so I went to martial arts.
Yeah. And then let's see, kid number 2, River. She's into ballet, so she's dancing ballet like 4 days a week, and she's also a black belt.
Oh, ninjas!
Yeah. and the little one, Tesla, is she's little. She's still figuring out exactly what she's into. She's probably most into swimming right now. So there you go.
I want to be a fish. Sometimes I try to hold my breath while watching Finding Nemo, and it never works.
Yeah.
So. I don't think I'd be a very good swimmer.
Yeah.
But it's a try.
Yeah. Then, like, just give you an idea what my life's like right now. Indigo is attending this fashion school in Seattle, so she's learning how to sew and design, make patterns and design clothes and all that. So I get to take her there once a week and go drink coffee while she's sewing, and it's awesome.
That name. That's such
pretty cool.
Yeah.
I love all your children's names, and I can definitely. I have to ask the question with River and Tesla. Was the inspiration for their name Mr. Nikolai Tesla himself and River Song from Firefly?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, no. So you did mess it up a little bit. River Song is from Doctor Who.
Ooh.
River Tam is from Firefly.
River Tam, yes.
Yeah, you meant River Tam.
Corrected.
Yeah,
my nerd heart just got sliced in half by level 2 combo. Jesus.
Yeah, the nerd realm was going to have to step in there.
So,
edit out.
I was thinking River Tam, and then my wife actually named Tesla. So there you go.
That's awesome.
I like them all.
Yeah.
They're all awesome. I personally named my daughter after the avenue on Nuketown. So, I mean, Trinity. At least her middle name's not Avenue, so.
Right.
After 10 years, I never thought about that.
Yeah, I went into labor, and you know what? I finished that game strong, so. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
But.
Dedication.
So, WOT, World of Tanks, will be coming out on Xbox One later on this year. The makers announced that the players can actually play against each other on Xbox 360 and Xbox One. Do you think that we're going to see this later on with more games in the future?
I hope so. I certainly have no say over what they're going to choose to do or not in the future now, but the debate back in the day, think of the first Xbox, which, after years of calling it by a name that later became a brand name for something else, I now call it I call it Xbox Prime. So there was this huge debate between allowing players to play against from Xbox Prime over to Xbox 360. And the main debates there is, how do you keep it fair? You've got different controllers, you've got different resolutions of UI. So I think that really ends up being more of a game design question than necessarily a technical one. It's sort of game design and policy. How do you if it works for that particular game and it doesn't give one side an unfair advantage and the game stays fun, then I think you'll see more of it. If you start having resolution battles or, hey, I've got slightly less latency on this box versus that one, there's certain styles of games where it wouldn't work as well. I actually have trouble imagining a Twitch fighter game working well across different kinds of consoles. But maybe some game developer can be really clever and figure it out. So I think that's more in their camp.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice to definitely see on how that would work. I never even thought about like resolution or different controllers. So at least you guys are ahead of the game. I was just more like, hey, I want to play.
Yeah, my entire deal with it is the first immediate question that would pop up for me is like a developer, some processing power for each console on a different like state right there. Like the Xbox One's processor would overpower the 360 immediately, and that would completely affect gameplay.
Well, it depends what kind of game you're talking about. Like in a racing game, right? It's all dead reckoning. The physics is all dead reckoning. So you know how fast the car is going, you know where it's going. So can the simulation engine make sure the car is in the right place? And then the only difference is, well, how pretty is it? Right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't really affect gameplay. In other kinds of games, the resolution and the level of detail you can show might affect the gameplay. And then you've got a different game design challenge ahead of you.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because remember, the main goal is to keep it fun. And if one side has an advantage, then that's not fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah, and it really hurts my head to think about PCs playing against consoles, because now I've got completely different forms of input. You got keyboard, you got mice.
Yeah.
Now your head is spinning.
Yeah.
It's like, oh God, how can I even think of this right now?
Just walking around through the world going, yep, he has a mouse.
Yeah, that's when I always give up. I always give up in my head, and I always imagine games where the person on the PC maybe has a top-down view of a map, and they're giving orders, and you got the soldiers on the consoles that are off doing things. And does that make sense?
Yeah.
It actually does.
Use the machines for what they're good at.
Yeah. Give them orders.
Yeah, but then again, I'm not a game designer, so there you go.
Right. Given the gift of hindsight, is there anything you would do different with Xbox Live? Also, is there something you wish you could have added but didn't have time for?
For Xbox Live?
Yes.
Oh, well, my work on Xbox Live was a long time ago. I basically stopped working on Live in 2004. Right, that's when I started XNA. So Xbox Live has gone through a lot of work and a lot of iterations since then, and it's a different world since I worked on it.
Well, then Xbox One, I changed my mind.
So what would I do different on Xbox One?
Yeah, I changed my mind on you.
Oh, okay.
I'm a female. I'm allowed to do this.
No, that's okay. What would I do different on Xbox One? That's a tough question. I think I would keep the underlying design of the operating system the same.
Uh-huh.
There's always pieces of it that if you go back, decisions get changed and things get rearranged and you have to go back and scramble. So I guess I'd love to see a smoother landing and maybe not have work 7 days a week. It's an easier question for me to answer in regard to XNA.
Well, then answer it that way. However you think that would be easier for you.
Yeah, and it's XNA's not around anymore. Except it kind of is. It kind of is. XNA, but this blew me away to realize last fall. Do you know what monogame is?
What was that? Monogame?
Monogame. So Monogame is an open source version of XNA. When Microsoft stopped supporting XNA, then Monogame took over. They basically cloned it, almost API for API. And the people who had been writing games on XNA could continue to do it using Monogame. Monogame grew and grew and continued with the work XNA had done, and it was at the bottom of Unity. It was the bottom layer of the Unity stack. So it kind of blew me away this fall to realize that a huge number of games on all the devices that are out there today are using Unity, and they're using Monogame, and effectively they're using XNA. I hadn't quite wrapped my head around it. And then in December, I was in France talking at the Engman Game School there. And by the way, there are some unbelievably good game development schools in Europe.
Oh, yeah.
It was in Angoulême, France. And I give my talk about future directions in game technology, blah blah blah. And then the guy from the independent game developers arm of PlayStation stands up, and he's talking about, well, how do you make a game on PlayStation? And he goes, well, first thing you need to do is go learn C# and install Monogame. And I went, oh my god, XNA's on PlayStation now.
You're everywhere.
And I think that was right about when my head exploded, and then I had to just go take a walk by myself.
So, have you ever gone to the dark blue side before of PlayStation?
Yeah, I haven't.
I had to ask.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't answer your question. What would I do differently? So, in today's world, in XNA, we took a big bet on C#, and it's a language that has an intermediate compilation step. So it compiles out to an intermediate language, and then the intermediate language is compiled to the final machine language basically at the time you play it. And given where we were, this is what, oh my gosh, 11 years ago, it makes a lot of sense. The machines that we were using then, they weren't really fast enough to use full-on scripting languages for a game, for game logic. But there was a huge desire to make it easier for people to program. So you don't have to be a C++ or assembly language wizard. Today, the machines are fast enough. So I think it would be very interesting to design a game development framework where you've got two kinds of code that are being written. You've got native code and you've got some higher level scripting language. And that would be an interesting space to explore.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
If you hear lots of noise, that's the dogs running around upstairs. In my office, there's a wooden floor above my head, and sometimes it's like a drum. It's just so noisy down here.
Now you just need to hook up your Guitar Hero guitar and start making music.
I'll hook up my real guitar.
Oh, bad.
See, I like this man.
Unfortunately, I can only play Guitar Hero.
Yeah, no, the kids know not to get in a noise contest with me because I can be louder than anybody. So
don't make me pull out the electric guitar, little girl.
Right, don't make me plug in the preamp. So,
if I may, this is 404. I have a question for you, Boyd. That I'd like to ask all of our guests is that what was the last boss that just drove you insane? The last game boss, I should say.
Oh, the last game boss.
Yeah.
Made you nervous.
Oh, that's a toughie. I'm going to have to think about that for a sec. For the last couple years, I've been so sucked into Skyrim.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And I love me some Elder Scrolls.
Oh my gosh. I've put, I got to this point in Skyrim where I looked at the counters and I went, oh my God, I'm 200 hours in. I should either stop or start the main quest. I took a break for a while and then I started over. It's not really like super big bosses in that game, right? And then lately I've been playing Galactic Civilizations 3. And that's not really a game that has a lot of bosses in it.
Okay.
I don't know. I'll have to think. It's been a little while.
Okay. You're on a different gamer level. I understand.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And then I guess really lately it's been a little bit too much Plants vs. Zombies 2. I hate Eric to say that.
Nothing wrong with that. I'm a big fan.
There have been a lot of deletes and reinstalls for that game on my phone.
I believe it. All right.
When creating the concept of Xbox Live or Xbox One, whichever one you want to use, what selling point seemed the hardest to instill in others? When bringing this concept to developers, did any of their feedback actually influence new ideas to your dreams that you overlooked?
Yeah, well, let's start with Xbox Live is interesting. So remember, go back in time, right? It's the year 2000.
2004. Yeah.
No. Xbox Live started in 2000.
Right.
It did.
Yeah.
God, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Come on, Brooke. Get on that level.
Oh
Well,
my God.
So at the time, there were no online services for consoles. I mean, the closest was the Dreamcast, which had a very simple, had a browser on it, but there wasn't an integrated console system. And the major publishers were all trying to figure out what they were doing, and they were trying to stake out their territory. And I think we were ahead of the game there. And we came up with two concepts that were just hugely controversial and really difficult to put through. The first one of those was the gamer tag. Pause for a second. The gamer tag. Why would that be controversial?
Yes. Yes, I was about to ask that. I was like, wait, the gamer tag?
The gamer tag. So remember, MySpace hadn't been created yet. Facebook hadn't been created yet. Twitter hadn't been created yet. We didn't have any training on what social media was.
Right.
Right. And what we were trying to say was, no. Gamers want to play with each other across the games. Right? If you have a name the name is held by the system and not by a specific game, then you can continue to play with your friends from game to game to game to game. And before then, it was always, no. You're going to make a name in my game. This is about my game, not about your system.
Very true. I never thought about that.
Right. So, ton of pushback. Right. Then the second controversial thing was, okay, so we got this gamer tag thing out of the way. Now, when someone's playing in your game and their friend comes on playing a different game, we're going to tell them that their friend just came on and what game they're playing. That would be the notifications. Even more controversial. The reaction now was, wait a minute. So first you're telling me I don't own the customer, right? That they're making an account with the service and not my game. And now you're telling me I'm going to advertise my competitor's game in my game.
Wow.
Right.
I never brought it up to that level.
I'm like, my mind is having trouble processing this.
I just woke up 2 hours ago. I work nights. My brain is exploding.
I mean, this was a long time ago, right? And the social media systems weren't there to have trained everybody as to what this meant. And that, there really were network effects and beneficial things by having the gamers see the other games that they're playing, and that would actually help advertise your game too, And it was, I like to think it was Ubisoft that kind of proved the point when they did Splinter Cell. And they were the first ones, I think they were the first ones that really embraced it and really deeply used Xbox Live and kind of embraced the gamer tag and the notifications and all that, and it really helped push their game. And it was beneficial to both of us.
Well, during that time, Ubisoft made the big console switch during that time, didn't they? They went from SOCOM and whatnot all the way to these big console names now.
Yeah. I mean, it was a breakout time for both parties. But some of the bigger guys, they were slower to come to it.
Oh. Well, that's pretty big.
That's intense.
Yeah, it was intense. There were some really tense meetings.
I believe it. I wish
imagine.
I was like the spider on the wall.
15 years later, our minds are exploding now. I feel bad for everybody in those meetings.
Yeah, it was tense. Yeah. So those were two of the big bets that we made, and we explored other crazy things. You go back, and broadband wasn't so common then, so we took a huge bet that people would get broadband. And so, like, a hugely controversial decision was: do we put a modem in the first Xbox, or do we put Ethernet?
Yeah.
So we're going to bet that the internet's going to go. And that worked. We explored the idea, well, geez, maybe we should try and get Microsoft to spend some money and go buy some dark fiber and make an off-internet. No. We're going to bet on the internet. It's going to be there. It's going to be fast enough. We can make it work. So, those were the kinds of things we were wrestling with.
Wow. Man, you guys had, like, this high stress thing of making something that you didn't know was going to catch on, and then look at it now. I mean, it's probably one of the most talked about online services ever.
Yeah, I'm really, really proud of it.
I bet.
Yeah. So, like, with those major interferences coming from other companies and stuff like that, with the gamer tag and, like you said, your friends coming online playing this game, how does it make you feel that now with like Xbox One and later stages of 360, that these studios are slowly kind of taking back their games, making you pay for the services again, versus where it was with 360, you buy it and you just play on live? Yeah,
everything evolves, and I view it as a sign that we're reaching a kind of a new stage. It's maybe not such a teenager anymore, and is starting to become an adult. And the markets get complicated. You're not completely being out there crazy risky and having lots of people ignore you. And now it's a necessity. It's also, it's gone through a lot of value changes itself. In the beginning, it was, hey, look, we're going to hook you up with your friends so you can play it all. And by the way, it's not free. Right. Well, I don't know that, is that enough of a value prop? Now you see games being given away as part of the Xbox Live subscription, and all these things are changing. And this is a sign of as these systems mature, you have to expect some changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else that you would like to tell the viewers and your fans?
Anything else
that is coming up, maybe in the near future, or?
Oh well, I could get nerdy.
Get nerdy with it.
After our Firefly conversation just a second ago, I think it's completely okay.
Yeah. So let's see. So if you're in Europe. I'll be speaking at the FMX conference in Stuttgart, Germany in May. That's a great conference. It's called Film Media Exchange, and it's like a third TV industry, a part movie industry, and a part game industry, and it's all about the intersection of them. And I've spoken at it a couple times, and it's just one of my favorite events. And one of the things I'll be talking about is as you look forward, I think no matter what you're doing, I don't care what your career is, I don't care what your job is, I don't care if you're designing consoles or doing anything else. One of the rules that I live by is when you choose to do what you're going to do, don't just make that decision based on where everything is today. You have to make some predictions and do what you think is going to be important in 2 years. Right? The way I phrase it is, if you're going to build a product and it's going to take you 2 years to build it, don't build something that would compete the day you start. Build something that'll compete the day it ships.
That's a really good saying. I really do like that.
I'm totally getting it tattooed.
That is my new Xbox bio right there.
And, I've tried to live my life by this one. This is why I joined Microsoft, because I'm like, wow, desktop publishing is at its peak right now. I think the internet's going to kill it in 2 years. I'm going to jump ship. Right? And when we started Xbox Live, it was the same thing. It's like, okay, online services are nothing. The internet, I think, is going to take off. I think people are going to want to play with their friends. Let's go for where that's going to be. Right? And frankly, Xbox One, same thing. I sat down, we had this discussion. It's all about just playing one game on a console right now. But the next set of gamers, they're used to their phones, they're used to apps, they're used to changing. I think we got to support both worlds. And I think that you got to make bets that are going to be good in the future. So as I look ahead, there's all kinds of weird changes that are coming, and they're really hard to wrap your head around. I'll just give you a sampling. Graphics chips are going to get a lot better. And how does that affect game design? In the 360, here, I'll give you the super brief history of graphics chips and why this makes my head hurt. On the first Xbox, it was a fixed function pipeline. So you'd write your game, and you had these couple of shaders you could use, and you made your game. And you weren't really writing your own shaders. And that was new. That was crazy new, and it took people a while to learn it. 360 comes along, and hey, now it's programmable shaders. You can write code that runs once for every pixel on the screen, and you can do crazy stuff with it. And it's a totally different way of thinking. In the current generation, at first it looks like the last one, where you're still writing shaders that run per pixel. But the design of the chip is different. And did you guys see there was this interview, it was a bunch of us on a panel talking about Xbox and Xbox One and the design of it. I was kind of going on about this a little bit, and I think a lot of people didn't understand what I was saying. The design of the chip is built with supercompute applications in mind. I'm not trying to say Xbox One was a supercomputer. And by the way, the PlayStation has pretty much the same chip, so it also has this architecture. It's the way you think about designing your game has to change to get the full use of these chips. You have to worry more about data flow than you do about building these programs. Right, you still build a shader, but you have to worry about, well, what data is in what stage of the pipeline at what time in order to get maximum use of these chips. And this is why I think over the next 10 years, you'll see these machines continue to get better and better. They're going to keep looking better as the game developers realize, oh, I thought the chip was at 100%, but it was actually stalled waiting for data to get in the right spot. It just looked like it was 100%. And this is hard, right? And this is a trend that you're going to see play out across the game industry. Another one is, I think game developers haven't fully wrapped their heads around what it means to have the cloud there and all these cloud compute resources. And just forget playtime, forget runtime applications. How does it change the way you develop your game? If you can have the rendering of the models you're working on happening on a server and having that image come down to a bunch of different artists rather than having to have them try to sync a terabyte of data across their local network. Here's the problem. I would go into these game studios and talk to them, and you've got 1,000 people working on artwork for a game, and they've each got to sync a terabyte of data across the local network. Well, you got 1,000 people all making check-ins, all changing this artwork, putting it into the central system, checking it out to make more changes, and you've completely swamped the network. I mean, the IT nightmare inside of these studios is really hard. Well, how can these guys start to use cloud services to alleviate some of this pain? And I think we're going to see a lot of the game development pipelines changing to be a little bit less local compute intense and a little bit more cloud compute intense. Right.
Why bog down our own systems when we can bog down somebody else's?
Well, you can bog down systems that someone else pays for.
Genius.
Or better yet, you've got a bunch of servers in a rack, and they're all on the same high-speed switch versus, geez, I've got all these machines spread across the building going across 20 different switches.
Yeah.
Right, so I've got fewer choke points, and I can get more data flow. And I'm still wrapping my head around what do all the stereoscopic headsets mean. I haven't even fully wrapped my head around this stuff. I guess I was lucky I got to see HoloLens in its infancy, and I can say it now. It's weird because it was so secret for a long time. And there's something there. There's something that's going to be big. It's going to be interesting, and I haven't quite got my head wrapped around what it is yet. So, but that's a space to watch.
Dun dun dun.
And then, if you want one more, have you guys followed SpaceX and what Elon Musk is doing?
No, I have not.
I live roughly about 30 minutes from one of SpaceX's testing sites. I can hear them all the way from my town, and I love hearing what they're doing out there, and I follow them a lot. So, okay, I mean, I do enjoy a lot of their products. So their projects.
I'm intensely jealous of that.
Like, I love walking outside my apartment and hearing a giant sonic boom at like 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I'm
like, that's future.
Here's the last piece I'll hang out there just to kind of think about. He says that he's going to put the number he said was 4,025 satellites in low Earth orbit, creating a constellation of communication satellites so that anybody anywhere, you can be out in the boonies My parents out in the boonies in Wisconsin will finally get proper internet access. So no matter where you are, you'll get a gigabit data going up to a satellite over and back down to Earth. And because it's in low Earth orbit, the latencies won't be too bad. All right.
Huh.
This means it's freaky. It means A, there'll be real competition for broadband services. B, it means that gigabit will become the standard. And C, if you start thinking about flow of game traffic over the internet, how does satellite constellations play into that in order to reduce latencies between gamers that would otherwise be too far apart to play?
Oh, servers would get so much better.
Yeah.
Oh God. Already.
And oddly, like all the traffic right now is terrestrial. It goes through fiber optic cables, buried fiber optic cables. The speed of light in space is about 40% faster than it is going through a fiber optic cable. That reduces latency, and again, will enable longer distance gameplay on Twitchy servers.
Oh my God.
So crazy stuff to think about, and that's not that far away. That's what did he say? I think he said he was going to try and get the first ones up and running in like 5 years.
Wow.
Oh,
Yes.
thank God Destiny has a 10-year contract. Thank you.
All right. So anyway, yeah, it's always good to kind of stop whatever you're doing, think ahead 2 years. What are the changes that are happening no matter what you do? Once you understand them, once you make your predictions, then you can start making your choices as to how is your work going to play into those changes? Either play with them or take advantage of them or maybe avoid them because they're going to trip you up. But you got to look out a couple of years. And I think access to space is going to be routine. I think compute is going to get really huge on both servers and clients. And this whole better latency to longer distances thing is really interesting and hard to wrap your head around.
Wow. It's great though.
Yeah. So there you go. That's stuff.
There's been a lot of mind explosion during this interview.
It's been amazing, honestly. And it's been such an honor to have you on the show talking to the four of us and all of the viewers. You're awesome.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, I honestly didn't think you were going to reply. So when you did, I was like, yes, I officially love Xbox even more.
Well, it turns out all you had to do was ask.
And I did, and I went for it.
So there you go. Go
big or go home.
Exactly.
That's what Jay used to say.
I looked like 2 weeks ahead. That's what I did.
Excellent. All right. Do you guys have any more questions?
I don't.
I'm completely tapped out. My head's still kind of wrapping my head around this whole future internet thing is going to be awesome.
I do for our Elder Scrolls viewers. What race and what class did you lean more towards in Skyrim? Just like your skill set.
Oh yeah. I tried a wood elf for a while, but the character I played the most was Nord. And I started. I don't know. I decided I was going to try to get to 100 in everything. So, first you go through all the. I started off two-handed weapons and heavy armor. Ended up destructive magic and.
This is my kind of Skyrimmer right here.
Yeah, so it kind of became. I struggle sometimes because I tend towards being a completionist. Where it's like, okay, well, I'm going to get to 100 in every single thing. And then I got to get to legendary, and then eventually I'm like, okay, maybe I just need to stop. And eventually the way I stopped playing was I opened up the PC and yanked out the graphics card. And said I'm not allowed to plug it back in for a while. And now I don't have that desire anymore.
Well, that's good.
That's where I'm at with Destiny right now. I'm screaming at Bungie because they're about to release another DLC, and I'm not done yet. I'm not done.
There you go. So right now my current obsession is just writing a ton of code.
Great. Yeah. Well, I look forward to the future on seeing what your code is.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, me too.
Be more.
And I'm pretty sure it'll make my head explode just like this interview did.
Yes.
Well, thanks.
Well, thank you so much for being on Pinky the Games. It was great having you.
All right. Well, it was great being had. Sorry.
Yes, I don't even know what to say to that. Like I was like thinking of an ending and then just gone. It was gone. It was done.
But, well, hey, it was great talking to you guys again.
It was an amazing night. I appreciate every bit of it.
All right. Well, thank you very much.